Donald Trump to visit the U.S. Now, Foreign Secretary S Jaishankar has met the U.S. NSA, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, and discussed counter-terrorism and bilateral relations between the two countries. He's also met the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, and discussed ways to enhance economic and defense cooperation. One of the top focuses of this high-level meeting is going to be Hafiz, Saeed, who is so far being shielded by Pakistan and China both. Will India now manage, along with the U.S., to cut a deal of sorts, or at least come to an agreement on the 2611 mastermind to bring him to justice? We'll be watching very carefully what could be the start of a very critical Modi-Trump engagement. Here are the details. Take a look. We'll come right back to this.
Pakistan military and police claim to have killed hundreds of terrorists in the past few weeks. Pakistan invited television journalists to beam the house arrest of dreaded terrorist Hafiz Saeed. What has led Islamabad to shed its defiance and pretend to be acting against terrorists? The answer lies in the change of administration in the US and India's hardening stand. It doesn't come as a surprise when Foreign Secretary S Jaishankar goes on a 4-day visit to the States, meeting Trump's national security advisor, as well as House Speaker Paul Ryan. Defense and counter-terrorism top the agenda.
India is engaging United States of America at the highest level. Foreign Secretary Jaishankar is in the U.S. He's met the National Security Advisor as also Speaker Paul Ryan. While one of the issues that was discussed was the fact that Indians have been attacked in U.S., there are also areas of concern that have been discussed between India and the United States of America, and that has to do with terrorism, particularly terrorism emanating from Pakistan.
In his first address to the Congress, US President Donald Trump reiterated the pledge to wipe out terror.
As promised, I directed the Department of Defense to develop a plan to demolish and destroy ISIS, a network of lawless savages that have slaughtered Muslims and Christians and men and women and children of all faiths and all beliefs.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has repeatedly warned the world against the threats of global terrorism.
Good Taliban, bad Taliban. Good terrorism, bad terrorism. ये अब चलने वाला नहीं.
Is it then only logical that Delhi and Washington are engaging further to consolidate cooperation? Even as Pakistan remains jittery and its all-weather ally China keeps a close watch. With Prime Minister Modi expected to visit the US later this year, will Pakistan be finally forced to act against terror? Bureau Report, NewsX.
Bharat Karnad will be joining us tonight. He's a strategic affairs expert. He joins us from Delhi. Amit Malviya, national spokesperson of the BJP, joins us. C.R. Kesavan, national spokesperson of the Congress Party, joins us from Chennai. We're also expecting a guest. Raymond Vickery will be joining us. He's a former Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Trade and Development under President Bill Clinton. He'll be joining us through Skype. Another Skype guest, I will introduce Professor Sumit Ganguly, in fact, right now, but he will be joining us in a bit via Skype as well. Let me start with the guests I have right now. Bharat Karnad, S. Jaishankar, extremely important trip here. He's met Paul Ryan. He's met General McMaster. General McMaster, of course, somebody who is known as a scholar general, somebody who knows the dangers that we face in this region, that the U.S. faces, and of course, how evolving trends have made sure that security and the security prism has become even more important. Do you believe that a critical engagement between the Trump/Modi administrations could perhaps kickstart, or if not kickstart, at least start some kind of understanding on the likes of Hafiz Saeed, the likes of Azhar, Masood, and the kind of terror agents that Pakistan routinely pumps into India, harbors them? Do you believe there is scope for that, given the fact that there is a lot of other business where India or the Modi government might or might not necessarily agree with the Trump administration?
Well, look, I think we have to begin to differentiate what President Trump said. You know, his emphasis was on ISIS, the Daesh. It's not really the Pakistani terrorists that we are concerned about, like the Lashkar-e-Taiba chief and Mahmoud Azhar and so on. Masood, Azhar, and so on. So we have to be careful not to try to conflate American concerns with Indian concerns. They're not the same. They're very different. And one has to keep in mind that the NSA that Jaishankar met today is, you know, a former Afghan veteran, war veteran. He very much appreciates the Afghan veteran, war veteran. He very much appreciates the frontline status of Pakistan. So does the Defense Secretary, U.S. Defense Secretary, General James Mattis. So they are unlikely, it's very, very unlikely, therefore, that you'll find Washington turning on a coin, as it were, and siding with India. Of course, rhetorical, they'll say, yes, we are against terrorism and so on. But it's very, very unlikely they'll join India in a substantive push or to pressure Pakistan into
very interesting,
something that the Pakistan government and the Pakistan army doesn't want to do.
That's very interesting, and I also want to introduce Professor Sumit Ganguly right now. He's a professor of political science at the Indiana University. And I want to
just one other.
Yes, please finish your sentence, sir. Bharat.
No, what I was trying to say also was that. Anyway, I've lost the train of. I've lost the train of thought.
My apologies for that. My apologies, but I did want to get Professor Sumit Ganguly's thoughts on this. Now, here Bharat Karnad, strategic affairs expert, believes that even though McMaster and Mad Dog Mattis, as he's known, are both Afghan veterans. In fact, Mad Dog Mattis led the troops in Afghanistan as well. You know, these are people that Hillary Clinton would have hired, really. These are the continuation, really, of a status quoist American foreign policy. Many would believe in America. So would you agree with Bharat Karnad's analysis that there's not going to be much of a change as far as India is concerned on terror emanating out of Pakistan is concerned? Largely, the Americans are concerned about the Taliban in Afghanistan, ISIS, Daesh, or what have you. Do you agree with that assessment? Professor Ganguly?
Only in part, but I think there is a possibility of a shift in policy for a couple of different reasons. One, I think Pakistan will take Trump's rhetoric somewhat seriously because they cannot afford to be to still be in collusion with a whole series of Islamist organizations and expect to simply get away with their past behavior. I think Trump is serious about dealing with radical Islam in a somewhat different fashion. So regardless of what Mattis thinks or McMaster thinks, they ultimately have to answer to Trump. That's the first point. The second is the LET is now starting to attack American forces in Afghanistan. This is bound to attract the attention of American policymakers. The LET is no longer confining its attacks to India. It has extended its ambit, and there is ample evidence that it is attacking American troops. This is bound to produce a different concentration of mind in Washington, and more particularly the White House.
Very interesting. I want to get thoughts on what Professor Ganguly has just said, both from Amit Malviya as well as C.R. Kesavan. Amit, I'll give you first shot at it. Go ahead, Amit. Do you believe that there is still the chance that ultimately both these veterans who are heading the security setup in America, there's room for some progress as far as a critical engagement between India and the Trump administration is concerned, but not much, Amit?
Azhar, I heard what Mr. Bharat said and also Professor Ganguly has said, and I tend to agree a bit more with what Professor Ganguly has said because, you know, at the end of the day, Donald Trump is a man who has his own mind, and the bureaucracy as it is in America has to eventually follow what he's saying. And let's not forget that ISIS and LET and several other Islamic organizations, as they are and as they are called, are not really very disjointed. At the end of the day, there is a great deal of synergy, or there is a great deal of purpose that they all share. And, you know, the West and America in particular has been at their target for a long time. India most certainly has to rise and defend its own borders. It can find a very suitable ally in America under President Trump. But then these are matters of discussion, these are matters of how the relationship evolves, and it's also a matter of how much India can be an access for America in this region, and how America sees India as far as the strategic imperatives are concerned. So things are quite fluid at this point in time. Donald Trump is really not somebody that most analysts know his mind, and clearly we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But one thing that stands really in India's favor is that when Trump was running for office, he did mention that India could have a great friend in the Trump administration, and I think that's a good start. And Jaishankar's visit to America now, and with the kind of engagement that we are seeing, is a pointer in that direction.
And Amit, just a quick question here. Do you really think and believe that India can sort of compartmentalize the cross purposes that the Trump administration seems to be working on? Now, if you look at Trump's rhetoric on economic policies, he does even target India, and in the sense not just on the immigrant issue, because India also comes under that umbrella, but also the fact that he speaks about jobs going out of America, he speaks about hiring American and buying American, and that affects a lot of Indian jobs. Do you think we can successfully compartmentalize the two?
Well, Azhar, you know, I heard Donald Trump's address to the Congress yesterday, and I think he made a very finely nuanced point where he said that we have to ensure that we create more jobs for America and we get in people who we really need in this country. Now, I'm sure Trump, who's a smart businessman who had business interests in India before he became the president, does know that Indian technology brain gets a lot of expertise to America, and not just in the technology sphere, even in otherwise. Indians in America are really the people who are occupying the top echelons of the job market there. And Trump's concern is not so much on the high-end jobs where America probably does not have the skills, but he wants to ensure that the low-end jobs, say the $65,000 US up to $130,000 US, the first job offers go to American and do not go to people who are not from America. So we will really have to see how much does it impact India. But there are two things that the Indian government is quite engaged with America already. And just one last point. Yeah. I heard a lot of technology company CEOs talk about evolving their business models to get around this, which means they would end up investing more in India and offshore jobs, which is good for us as a country.
Well, that remains to be seen now. But I get your point. Kesavan, S Jaishankar, India's top diplomat in Washington right now, not only has met members of the security establishment, but also met Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, who, of course, has come under a lot of scrutiny as well because of the way perceptorially he's buckled under the Trump juggernaut. But that's a separate issue. How do you see this particular plan, if there is a plan, in trying to isolate Pakistan with the help of America? How do you see this panning out?
Athar, this is Mr. Jaishankar's third visit after the November presidential election, and it's his first visit after the inauguration of Mr. Donald Trump. And I'd like to recollect his words a few days before he embarked on this trip. He said, let's not demonize Trump. Let's try to understand him because Mr. Trump represents a thought process. See, this is where we have to look into what kind of thought process are we dealing with. You know, a friend from the BJP mentioned about the address to the Congress. Yeah, he did mention about the Kansas City shooting, and it was mere a perfunctory platitude playing to the gallery, because in the same address he talked about creating a new agency under the Homeland Security called the victim of immigrant crime engagement called Voice, which directly comes under the Immigration and Customs Enforcement scanner. So completely chalk and cheese there. As regards to Pakistan, two things come to my mind. See, when Trump took over and he spoke to Nawaz Sharif, he went gaga. He said, this is one of the greatest countries, this is one of the best countries, and Mr. Nawaz Sharif even released a transcript of his talk with Mr. Trump. Immediately, the White House toned it down and said, no, we talked about the future, this is not what we spoke with Pakistan. Let us understand one thing, Athar. With regard to Mr. Trump's administration, you know that they've enforced a travel ban on countries which they say is exporting terror, specifically 7 Muslim countries. But very conspicuously, Pakistan has been left out, and we should understand that it was in Pakistan where America's foremost enemy, Mr. Osama bin Laden, was kept and fostered. And having said that, and once they came in and had the mission to take him out, still I don't know why Pakistan has not been looked at it from that angle. And Mr. Hafiz Saeed, the Americans have a 10 million bounty on Mr. Hafiz Saeed from 2012. And when Mr. Kerry visited in 2013 on a state visit to Pakistan, the Pakistan government was trying to engage 2 trains to ferry in people for Mr. Hafiz Saeed's public rally. So I really don't know, this recent public rally. So I really don't know, this recent house arrest of Mr. Hafiz Saeed. He's been under house arrest 5 times. And he had a press release, he had a video release before the media after his house arrest. So I have my very strong doubts in which way Mr. Trump is looking at,
all right. So you believe the status quo is going to continue?
Prisons
all right. Kesavan, you believe the status quo is going to continue?
Just one more point. Yeah. I just want to make one more point to underscore that.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
See, there is one gentleman called Mr. Shakil Afridi. He was mentioned by the CIA that Mr. Shakil Afridi gave the all-important intelligence to find out where Mr. Osama bin Laden was. And now, even after American intervention, Mr. Shakil Afridi has been sentenced to 33 years prison in Pakistan. And America has been trying to engage with them. And if this is the case for somebody who helped nab Osama bin Laden, you think they're going to come and help India in understanding the kind of crimes Mr. Hafiz Saeed has perpetrated and bring them under justice?
Kesavan, I'm just being told.
I've just
been told I have about 2 minutes left on this debate, and I've also been told Raymond Vickery is joining us on the phone line right now. Thank you, Raymond, for joining us. Great to speak to you again. Very quickly then, do you really believe that this is perhaps the beginning of a critical engagement that could turn out to be in India's favor vis-a-vis Pakistan and the terror being exported to Pakistan into India? Because the top diplomat of India is in the US right now. Do you believe that despite the fact that status quoists like General McMaster, like Mad Dog Mattis have been are now going to head the security establishment in America, the Trump administration is going to do something vastly different than what the Obama and the Clinton administrations and the Bush administration did vis-a-vis India, Pakistan and the entire region? Raymond, go ahead.
Well, I think that there's a great opportunity here because there's a well of good feeling and really alignment of interest in terms of stopping terrorism, whether it originates from Pakistan or wherever. I think that there's no question that the last incursion, the Obama administration condemned that. I would expect the Trump administration to work with the government of India to stop terrorism across borders. So there is very strong bipartisan support in the United States for that kind of cooperation, and I think it's a really good development.
So let me ask you this, Raymond, then, because I'm short on time, so I'm going to make it quick here. Do you really believe that this particular engagement started by Mr. Jaishankar, the Indian Foreign Secretary, could give us the result we want in terms of tangibles? I'm talking Hafiz Saeed, I'm talking the LET, I'm talking Azhar, Masood and the likes.
Well, you know, it's not going to be a new earth and a new situation, and it's not going to be the revolution, perhaps, that some would like. But I do think that it will be progress, and I think it's very worthwhile for Secretary Jaishankar to be here. I think that it's laying the ground for the visit of Prime Minister Modi to come, and I think there will be greater cooperation on terrorism from Pakistan or wherever it originates.
I've spoken like a true diplomat, Raymond. Progress, of course, is the word that you used. I'd give the last word to Professor Sumit Ganguly, who, of course, heard Raymond Vickery right now. Would you agree with that? There will be progress, Professor Ganguly, and it's a great opportunity, and perhaps we might see a change. However little, perhaps, or glacial, if I could use that word, it might be.
I think there is every likelihood of a change in policy because Trump does represent a departure from both parties. Even though he's notionally a Republican, he has very definite views of his own, which in many ways do not accord completely with the normal functioning of the Republican Party. And he has made the war on terror one of his personal obsessions. And he is particularly concerned about the relationship, particularly concerned about Islamist terror rather than terror as a general issue. And consequently, I suspect we will see a shift on Pakistan that we have not seen earlier.
All right, if you could squeeze in 30 seconds of Bharat Karnad, closing comments to you, sir. I've been given a 30-second luxury here. Bharat, go ahead. Let's end with your comments.
Thank you. I think someone talked about the sort of agreement on visas and so on. Actually, what Trump said was he's going to restrict the H-1B and the L-1 visa channels. The point I think he made was that any immigrant who comes in will have to be self-supporting, economically self-supporting. That means that the usual family reunification that is there as part of the visa regime will not be allowed, meaning the H-1B visa person will not be allowed to bring in his family, his siblings, and so on. Once that thing is removed, I think that one of the great incentives for Indian aspirants trying to immigrate to America is going to be lost. And finally, let me just add that the sort of work that our IT experts do is at least in outsourcing terms here, pretty low-grade stuff. You do not get any patents for it. It's not really creative or innovative technology. A lot of it is repetitive work.
All right, we seem to have lost that connection with Bharat Karnad, and coincidentally, I'm completely out of time here, so that worked itself out. Thank you, Bharat Karnad, for joining us. Raymond, Vickery, great to speak to you again. Professor Sumit Ganguly, always a pleasure. And CR Kesavan and Amit, Malviya. I'm sure I'll be talking to both of you very soon. That's all we have on The Nation at 9 tonight.